Yes. When you think about juicing kale, juicing beets, beet greens, turnips, cabbage,
Asparagus.
yeah. What about? Because I know you talked about some of you talked in your book, the first book about some of you discovered that some of the vegetables have almost medicinal qualities, and they should be. You have a list of ones that should be approached with caution, adding them to your juice. What dangers would I be, or what effects or betterments would I be getting on myself by
Overdosing. Well, the problem with overdosing is it interferes with digestion, and it could bring on a hell of a detoxification.
You talked about beet juice and
Beet juice, well, the beet juice is high in sugar. That alone could cause, a carbohydrate detoxification, an old toxic glycogen. Because we store a lot of toxic glycogen in our bodies because we can't convert it properly because we don't make the proper insulin. It's not like the chemical insulin like the pharmaceutical houses use, but it still will cause emotional and physical imbalances in sugar levels. So, and when you're using, like I'll use a lot more carrot these days to help get the bile out of the body. People who turn orange with the carrot juice, I used to think it was the carotene, also undigested carotene, that if you weren't processing it properly, they didn't have the bile to process it properly. But when I did skin scrapings on people who had on the palms, they had all of that very orangish cast, I found there was a lot of toxic bile that was not utilized properly. And very little of it was the carotene. So that's how I discovered that the carrot juice and the carotene in the carrot juice help remove toxic stored bile in the body. And especially happens on yellow people like Asians. Like one girl that was here a little earlier, Elena, when she went on this diet about 3 years ago, she was a normal Asian, very, very yellow from eating all of the rice that requires a lot of bile to break it down into a fat. And because we have to, if you're on a diet that you're not eating fat, your body's going to have to convert proteins and carbohydrates into acetates, which are fats. They're very poor fats. And in the Asians, the bile and the acetate mixes together and lubricates their skin. So they've got this very yellowish skin. Now in the last 3 years that she's been on the diet, she's half as yellow as she used to be. In fact, her hands are now almost pink like mine, only the palms are still yellow, orangish and yellow. And I have quite a few Asian patients in Singapore who are on the diet and the same things happen. In fact, one who looks like a white guy. So he used to be very yellow.
Well, what do you think of the kale as adding a lot of that?
Well, like I said, kale is very detoxifying for certain things. So,
what about if you just want to add like minerals and to your body? How's it for that?
Like I say, you can use a certain amount of vegetable juice in a day, which is fine. Anything over that, you're not going to get a good base mineral. The minerals that we digest to build the body properly are minerals from animal products. Those we digest absolutely. So if you want to use, and I use the minerals in vegetable juice to help chelate a certain amount of certain toxins that are in the blood and in the digestive tract, not to add to the minerals for having a good foundation in the body. I use cheese and honey eaten together allows the cheese to be digested and all the minerals absorbed. When you eat raw cheese, unsalted raw cheese is impossible, I found by checking the feces, for the human to digest very much of it all, maybe 2 to 5%. So what it does is it acts as a magnet and broom and a vacuum and a sponge, and attracts poisons out of the fluid systems as they run through the alimentary canal, the neurological, the lymphatic, and the blood. So the cheese draws it out of those systems as it passes through, as they weave their way through the digestive tract. And then the cheese holds onto it like a sponge and then dumps it out to feces. Now when I check the feces after eating salted raw cheese or cheese made from pasteurized dairy, it doesn't do that, it's reabsorbed. So all those toxins that are absorbed by the cheese are reabsorbed by the body when you digest them. However, I found in my experiments that if I mix cheese now, I got this from a model. I was dating a model, and she was ultra skinny, not quite as skinny as Twiggy, but just about. And she just got into this honey and cheese binge, and she's eating like a pound of honey a day with like a half a cup of cheese. I mean, half a cup of honey with about a pound of cheese a day, and she put on 50 pounds in a month. Whoa! That was great because she calmed down, but she certainly stopped working instantly. You know, gained 50 pounds in a month. That was a lot. She couldn't stop it. You know, she was so starved and hungry, she couldn't help herself. And that's the problem with a lot of vegetarians. But I was not eating a lot of meat then. I was only eating raw meat 3 days a week and not every day, twice daily. And she was pretty much doing the diet, so it wasn't a very balanced diet. She'd been eating the meat, she wouldn't have gotten that kind of craving. I got a call 2 years ago from a supermodel named Jennifer, and I didn't get her last name, but she called to thank me. But all the supermodels that she hangs with are so delighted because they're so balanced on this diet that they don't have to eat till they get fat or vomit and starve. They can eat, be nourished, and don't have to put on a lot of weight. I said, it's good to have the weight though, you know. They said, yeah, but at least we feel calm and we don't feel like vomiting and we're not starving anymore. We feel very good and we don't have to be, you know, we didn't have to put on much weight. So
if I want to experiment with other vegetable juices, what do you recommend outside of your usual?
Well, what I say is, if you're going to do those things, do it no more than 5% of your juice, and I say that in the recipe book. If you're going to use kale, leeks, or anything like that, never more than 5% of your juice, to be on the safe side. There could be athletes who could use 10% of your heavy exerciser, which would be fine. But again, the cheese is to absorb minerals with honey, and the vegetable juice is just to chelate, use those minerals to neutralize the over-acidity in the bloodstream from all the toxicity from the cooked foods for all the years of cooked foods.